interview with Bruce Willis by Dotson Rader on Thursday, December 6th, 2001 at Cheyenne, Cheyenne Enterprises at 406 Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica, California. And part of the reason I'm here is because of Hart's War. This is new. War conflict. It's a very subtle film, very complicated film. But the conflict between the claim of the individual as opposed to the claim of the group, which is exactly what we're going through now in terms of what's owed to the nation as opposed to what's owed to the individual. And the
isn't it? I mean, every time I see it,
I'd like to see it again.
Well, certainly show to. I like that. I mean, I like that acting style. I like the idea of having that as a goal in telling a story. I mean, I think it would have been very easy to become melodramatic about this film with the racial card and man, I've been in films where, as much as I protested against it, as much as I protested against it,
I once lost an interview with the president. Mr. Reagan, the tape. I get very, very nervous.
All right. No,
this guy was so nice. This man. Mike Deaver called the next day and they rescheduled it. I mean, this is a very, very busy man, and I was just. Ever since that, I've been spooked.
How'd you lose it? What do you mean? Something happened.
I was so nervous. It was the first time I was ever in the Oval Office, and I was just, like that, and I pushed the wrong button.
Yeah, I know. It does have an effect on you. Does it walking in that room?
But this time what I would like to do today. This is going to come out around the time we have about 80 million readers in the United States, and then it'll be syndicated around the world. So
what is their skew on how they want to present me or anybody or films or all that? I mean, what is their?
Well, I'll tell you my interest in there. Because I'm here.
Will they just print whatever you write?
Print whatever I write.
Great. Okay. That's cool.
I've been talking to Paul. Paul, by the way, in terms of what he does, Paul is without. We'll go back to the film, but okay. You made a quote. You said, I wrote it down because I was struck by it. You said Al Pacino was the guy whose single performance in the first Godfather convinced me to be an actor. He had a quality of stillness. That was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. When I thought of this quote when I saw the film, because you have that same stillness, that same gravity and silence. I mean, it's just extraordinary. To know a little bit about what drew you into acting.
What got me into it? Well, there's an emotional side to it, and there's something that I didn't discover until years later, and I hardly ever talk about it now. I've mentioned it a few times, and it's never really been written about or included in the stuff because they'd rather, for the most part, whether it's in the tabloids or things like this or People magazine and shit that they do unsolicited. The stuff generally I think it's written about me is from the point of view of my personal life as entertainment to the public. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I talk about stuff. I talk about political things. I talk about Native American Indian problem. I talk about things that are important to me and I care about. They never write that shit. They just, they always write about the, who I'm fucking or whatever. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, I had a really bad stutter. And this miraculous thing happened when I was 16. A play at the YMCA, and
at the YMCA. Okay.
And when I got on stage, I didn't stop stuttering. When I came off stage, I stuttered again. I couldn't believe it. So that's the emotional side of what I was fascinated with about it. the reason I continue to do it 25 years, 30 years later is, and this is the thing, this is why I was talking about interviews and what they print and what they don't print, what they choose to write about and don't write about. They'd much rather talk about how much I get paid, how much the movies cost overages and all that shit. And nobody ever wants to talk about the artistic mean of the actors and how they, approach a role or why they still act or whatever.
That's difficult.
It is. And you know what? Difficult to compartmentalize, which really is, if you're saying, I don't know how it works, if they say, write 10,000 words or 5,000 words or write, 24 columns, whatever you got to do. You got to put in a box somehow. It's difficult. I understand that part. But if I could paint, I would paint. If I could sculpt or do anything else artistic, I would be doing that. I was led to acting. I was led to performance. And it's fun for me, and it's good time to be an actor. But there's something I'm trying to get out of me, and this is the way I do it.
When you were, I want to get, if I can just spend a moment on motivation and becoming an actor. Do you have any idea what, you talk about stuttering, and you go on stage and the stuttering stops. And the reason it stops is why?
Because I'm no longer Bruce Willis.
You're lost in...
Well,
you're lost in a
as
character.
lost as a 16-year-old kid who doesn't know how to act can be, but I'm on stage performing with the goal or with the intent of trying to entertain people, and that's still the goal. And it's a good job trying to entertain people.
I just say that, John. I just want to, when I do this, because I
Huge potential to fail. No, that's right. Huge potential to fail. You're right. That's a good point. That's exactly what it is. Film is similar in a different way, but because you can stop and start. On the stage, you can't. And what you're asking the audience to do, come in New York, even worse, cold. People go to the theater when it's cold. People go to the theater when it's raining. And within the first minutes or whatever, you want to take them out of the world they came in with, and all the, as you say, all the baggage they come in with. Set that aside and they come in wanting to be entertained, and somehow you've got to get to it, and that's why I love Sam Shepard, and that stuff lends itself so much towards saying, shut up your outside life for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and let us, and just come with us, come along for the ride. And
but don't they, sir, also come in when you're dealing with a New York audience or West End audience, and you're dealing with people that know the theater. This is not a road show in Minneapolis.
Right,
People
right.
go to the theater every 4 or 5 times a year, and they've been doing it for decades.
yeah.
And at least in New York, and actors, I don't know, do actors feel this seems to be sort of a show me attitude, a kind of
They're
skepticism?
daring you, fuck yeah, they're daring you. They want you to, and people that go to the theater go to a lot of theater, and they want to be entertained, they want to be moved, they want to get to that, and I don't know, I think there should be a word for it, but whatever it is, that thing that happens in the first 15 minutes, or doesn't happen, if you go see a show where it doesn't happen, where the audience goes, I'm with you, I'm here, and I believe, and I will suspend my disbelief and believe that you are Lee, or you are Eddie in Fool for Love, Lee in True West. And I go to the theater. I still go to the theater looking for that, wanting to see that, praying that. And last time I was in New York, I saw Producers. Different kind of stage work, not serious drama, but it's brilliant. It's just fucking brilliant. It's hilarious, and everything that you wanted from it, and big production value, and I still go, I still want to see that.
Yeah, but in a sense, though, I want to take issue with that. I mean, I saw it too. And the Producers is great fun, but it's an entertainment.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it isn't,
Is it important? I don't know. Please don't write that.
No, I know.
don't want to insult those guys, but
When you, back to the Tennessee for a minute, one of the things about acting, you said that part of it was losing yourself in a role. Am I correct? Which is about the obliteration self.
right. Which has good points. And yeah, interrupt you. I'm sorry, but
No, but why is there the need to obliterate the self?
I don't know. You know, being in my own skin, it is a novel, singular kind of job. I would do if I had a job where I had to do the same thing over and over and over in the same white skin every time. And I've been fortunate enough because of some successes that I had with films early on. I get asked to do all kinds of stuff, and we now look for things that are, for me anyway, as the actor, that are different every time, and it's fun. It's still.
I want you to tell me, sir, okay, have you had a moment like that, kind of that sort of epiphany where you...
Yeah. Thank you. Is
Cheers.
all the places. You got an asher? That place that kicked my ass. I did, I don't know, close to 100. Always for the actors too. For the actors too, because right up until the very last moment of that play, or a play like True West even better. Right up to the very last moment that you're on stage, you are at 10, you are at 100% of blasting these characters out at the audience. And when I did Fool for Love, I mean, I had done other stage plays, but they're kind of horsey, off Broadway, artsy kind of stuff. It really was that kind of epiphany of looking at the audience, can barely breathe, standing out there sweating, dripping, completely soaked, sweaty, and then the audience is just standing up going, you did it, you got me, you clean thing. And it's why I keep going back now to theater. I do it up in Sun Valley because we have great theater there that I would hold up against any off-Broadway house in New York. 320 seats.
In Sun Valley?
Yeah. It's an old movie theater that we...
Oh, is this the Liberty?
The Liberty, yeah. That we...
That's where you did True West for Showtime.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the Showtime thing came late. That was just an afterthought, but... I did it because I wanted to do the play. And... I mean, it just beat me up. But that play, like, you're going... sweat's running down, you're just coming, and people stand up and go, you did it, you got me. And yeah, I mean, it's a magical thing that happens.
May I ask you about your parents? What I'd like to get to is what, and I may be wrong on this, but my understanding is that stammering in a child is a condition that's provoked by something.
Provoked by stress.
Often fear.
Yeah.
The interviews that I've read with you, have an ancient understanding of what might have provoked this. And it was his mother and his father, I think, got divorced, according to one source, in '71.
Yeah, but they
maybe
separated much earlier, and I don't know if that's it. I mean, I can't say.
So I'm not
for
trying to blame
sure.
them, but I mean, did you feel?
It's an emotional thing, yeah. I mean, I don't know. All I knew is when it stopped. And I'm fortunate because a lot of people can't stop it. A lot of people stop it their whole lives. And yeah, it's emotionally provoked for the most part, I think.
What about the reason I asked this, you talk a lot over the years, and I'm talking about interviews going back to 1985. In terms of your father, I haven't gotten a sense of what he was like as a man.
Pretty quiet.
To sort of describe how he trouble with this machine, do you believe this?
Was an actor.
Watch it, I'm sure. I don't know what's wrong with it.
His lives on after his death. I mean, it's just, that's a, you know, in theater and some films, and had a quality of, you know, stuff is still, you know, performed still just as good as it was when he wrote it the first time. Not to mention the fact of what happened with Marlon Brando and how I was just talking to some friends of mine. Marlon Brando was doing a teaching thing. He's talking about acting. He's holding these seminars, these acting seminars, and for the first time ever, I guess. Because of that play, and I know the story about him going up to Tennessee's house, fixing the screen door and all that shit.
The Twilight woman. Yeah.
Marlon Brando and Tennessee Williams changed acting forever. Changed how actors act forever. It was pre-Streetcar, and it was everything that came after. And acting changed forever because of that. That's a huge thing. It's huge.
Let me just check it. I don't see it. To me, I see more, in terms of your filmmaking, more Bogart, more Gary Stupid than I see Brando.
Yeah, no, not that I was saying I was that, but just the technique of keeping it, of being honest, of always making sure that the goal is to be as honest as you can.
Tell me about your father. Disciplinarian, tough, but he was a soldier.
He was in the military. He never saw, combat action. But I'm descended from a long line of mechanics. My grandfather, all my dad's brothers, my dad. I knew how to weld. I was taught how to weld when I was 13 years old. And how to fix engines. And my dad my dad told me a funny story. We're going to do, on this upcoming film, that right now, for lack of any other thing, we're calling Hostile Act. It'll have a new title by the time we actually do it. But some of the scenes we're going to shoot are on the Kitty Hawk, and my dad said, I was a welder on that ship. I helped build that ship in Camden, in the Camden shipyard. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to bring my dad out, and he said, get me on that boat, and I'll show you what I welded, what I built. I can take you right to the spot that I was, working on. So that's.
What was your mother? Was your father a disciplinarian? Was he?
No. Well, yeah. I mean.
Was he tough? I mean, I was because you.
Tough? No. I think that he had a difficult time expressing his emotions. Just a quiet guy, and had that 30s, 40s, 50s thing of keep it to yourself, and as opposed to what it is today, where men just and women end up point being that talk about everything and get the emotions out and all that shit. Well, it doesn't, it wasn't like that in the 60s and 70s. And then just really, take it like a man, and that was my dad's sensibility. Keep it to yourself, and did that, and there are things that if the role calls for it, there are things that I draw upon.
Your dad.
Yeah.
Was your mother I'm trying to where that sort of artistic appreciation came from. That was from your mother? I mean, it had to come from somewhere, this valuing of art.
My brother David has a theory that because my mother was born in Germany, and that my dad met my mom there and married her there and came back to the United States. My brother David's theory is that because a new strain of blood was introduced into our family, that it caused my brothers, my sister to move out of a small town. A lot of my friends are still in that small town, 7,000 people, whatever. And we all, in my family, we all got out. I went to New York. My younger brother, Robert, came to New York, stayed with me for a while. David got out of the house, and we all spun out of the orbit of Carneys Point, New Jersey, in a small town. And
For you and
I'm not sure of what the influence of my parents was on me becoming an actor, or how that connection.
well, the reason I ask is you went through high school, you were in the drama club, you did some plays, and then there's this sort of interregnum between high school and college when you get a job at DuPont, working with your father, you're driving a truck, there's a building explodes or something, and then you quit, and you get a job as a guard in a nuclear plant, right? So it's this like almost a year between high school before you go, as if you don't know quite who you are, and you're being pulled into your father's world and it's his life.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so my question is what changed? Why you're going? I'm saying you were going the same way your family always went, and suddenly at one point you just stopped and said no, and turned around, went a different way no one else had gone. And my question is why? What provoked that?
They were at that time working for EI DuPont was probably the best money going at a time when minimum wage was $2.10 an hour. I started working at a very low level job for like $4.50 an hour. The thing that got me out of that is a very specific thing. I had a moment of clarity one day during the 6 months that I was working there, where I saw these guys that we used to call lifers, there for 20 years and retire. And I saw these guys. I was working with guys that were, I was 18. I saw guys that had been there, that had already been there 15 years, and with their feet in the same footprints every day, walking the same path, doing the same job, and I realized I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that. But there was something else, and I didn't know that that my drive towards acting would take me to a job that was as far away from being a lifer as it could possibly be. And I just said, this is not for me, I don't want to do this. And I didn't quite know what I was going to do when I left there, but my father thought it was a huge mistake for me to leave. He said, this is the best job you're ever going to have, and that's to leave. I think he has since revised his opinion.
But the reason you left wasn't because of the explosion.
Well, I mean, that was the catalyst. That was the catalyst for me to actually make the change, get out of there. But I was already thinking that this was not what I wanted to do.
Did you know at that point that acting is what you wanted to do?
No, I knew I wanted to act. I knew I wanted to go and study acting, but I didn't. The stage work that I had done in high school was high school theater. I didn't know anything about it. No one really taught acting. It wasn't until I got to college and I did my first stage play there that I realized how much I needed to act. Just the quality and the intensity and the professionalism of the kind of shows that we did in college and the stuff I did in New York really convinced me that I was home. I said, this is what I want to do. We did my first semester in college. We did 1 quarter of cookies on something. A small part now, but I said, this is it. This is what I want to do. And from that moment forward, I never thought about doing anything else. Never thought about any other job.
When you got your off-Broadway debut was Heaven and Earth. And you'd already, with Dotson, been sort of skipping classes and going into audition, right? But you already half there.
Yeah.
And that was what precipitated you finally, was that,
That's why I left college. I said, I'm moving to New York. I got a job, and or, you know, good, bad, or whatever, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to try to do.
when did you start with Stella Adler? When did that happen? I mean, I was amazed when I saw that. I didn't know you had that.
Years, probably 2 years in, a couple years into New York. I couldn't afford it. There was a guy who worked for her who I became friends with, and he kind of snuck me in. When I could pay, I would pay.
Right.
But I was thrilled to be in her presence and listen to what she had to say about it. And I really was only there for a short while. I think I did 2 scenes in class. And did you know Stella?
No.
Incredibly tough on the women.
On women?
She liked guys. She was much more lenient on the guys. But I was in her class one day, and I actually, after this girl did a scene on stage, I actually heard her say, "Darling, go home to whatever small town you came from, get married and begin raising children." I said it to this girl on stage. The girl burst into fucking tears on stage, and the whole class just, oh my God. She was tough. But I did a couple scenes for her, and she's I got a lot of praise from her. And to me, that was a huge praise. Huge praise. And just another little, there were clues along the way that I was on the right path.
Well, the thing I was going to ask you, because you got, you said essentially scored yourself bartender.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. I think you did some modeling and you had little TV roles and.
No modeling, commercial, actually worked in commercials.
But you had a long stretch there from the time you left Montclair, which is 74, until you went to LA to audition. That's 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until the very end of that Sam Shepard put you in Pool for Love. So it was 10 years from the time you arrived in New York City until you got your big break.
Yeah.
That's a long, long time to hold on to a dream. So the question is, what kept you going?
Every play that I did, I got a little bit better role. I did better as an actor. I learned from every play that I did a little bit more about how to be interesting, how to act, how to perform, how to not be boring.
Good point.
Which is our job, which is actors' job, is to be interesting and not be boring and to be entertaining. And I think I still do. I mean, I still think it's a good goal. It satisfies me internally, but I've always been very proud to be able to entertain people from time to time. Some of my films haven't been that entertaining, but it's certainly not for lack of trying.
In that period, Mr. Willis, as you're a young actor, in terms of, say, all of adult 15 years down the line, you want to be able to be good enough and established enough to be able to do whatever you want in terms of stage acting, or you want fame, or you wanted money, or you wanted influence. What was the ultimate thing you wanted?
I didn't know any.
This to bring you.
I was pretty naive about what the potential was to become famous, to get money, to be known in a worldwide format. I didn't know anything about that. All I wanted to do was act. I had no idea that I was ever going to get involved in television. I had some rough plan of going from off-Broadway to eventually Broadway, and I thought, well, if I'm in a Broadway play and I do well, maybe I'll get a film job. No idea about going out to LA and getting TV working. New York actors, I think, still tend to look down on TV as a kind of the red-headed stepson of performing.
Yeah, it's true, they do.
And I came out to LA with that attitude. But I read the script that Glenn Caron wrote, and I went, I know this guy. I know this character. And walked in to the audition with my New York attitude and my New York auditioning method. And walked in, did it, said, okay, thanks very much, I'll see you later. And walked out, and Glenn actually came running out and said, well, come on back, you want to talk to someone? Yeah. And my attitude changed because that show and the style of writing and the style of performance in that show was different than anything that I experienced as an audience member watching TV. It's a different kind of thing. And at the time, a pretty novel approach to television entertainment. Our film's format. Thank you. And more than anything, that show, and that time period of my life, and that show was just an amazing, special time. But it was my PhD. It was get to learn how to act in front of a camera, which I had no idea how to do. Get to learn how to act in front of a camera. Pretty low stakes compared to films, because if you do a good show this Tuesday and then the next Tuesday's show is less than good, you get another shot. You're not sent home.
And they were always different too. I mean, some were
We tried as hard as
funny, and some were more serious, and some were kind of down.
on camera. I mean, once we were accepted as a TV show, he brought a lot. I mean, we just did stuff every show that some of it was about the romantic comedy aspects of the show, but we did some pretty daring stuff. And at the time, we did things that I would put up against any hour of television that existed. We did black and white episodes. We did a spoof on Shakespeare. It wasn't always just comedy. We did like the first year in, or maybe it was the second season. I can't remember. We started doing dramatic episodes where there's an episode, a great episode called Big Man on Mulberry Street. And I got to do a very quiet, serious scene and be emotional and be vulnerable. I can't believe I get to do this in a show that is supposed to be a comedy.
Well, part of it, though, it was such a, I'm not saying the original here, but I mean, I remember when it came on, the show everybody was talking about, because it was so fresh.
Right.
And I'm just talking about just guys in general, where there's a real feeling that this is what we actually are like, as opposed to this Alan Alda.
Yeah.
But I'm not, that's...
No,
there's
but
a
it
great
was,
sense
right,
of
it is that.
Unless somebody's funny, acting like we act, someone's speaking the truth here, as opposed to...
Yeah, you're right. And once I kind of latched onto that, and I found out that I could do that, and that's what they wanted me to do, I say, here we go. I just leaned into it. And I agree. I mean, TV prior to Moonlighting was man as nice guy, revisionist kind of non-Gary Cooper. Let's talk about our emotions and our feelings, and let's be, let's get in touch with our feminine side.
It's like, let me be your sister. Kind of. I don't mean to be. That sounds sexist, but I mean.
No, I agree. And Glenn Caron gave me permission to be the guy that just stood there and said, this is what's going on. This is how guys are. This is what I think. This is what, and there was a lot of that in there. And they let me get away with it. I kept bringing more of that in, and they said, "This is what we want. This is good. This is the stuff that we want to do." And all the while continuing to try to be funny, to be entertaining in a humorous way. But that character really was me. I didn't have enough acting skills at the time to really get outside myself and play a different character that was not of the flesh and blood of Bruce Willis, but that character and that sense of humor and that my fucking attitude was pretty much me and pretty much where I was in my late 20s. And it just fit, it was just a very synchronous thing that I got to play a character that was pretty damn close to my take on life and my take on, men and how men deal with women and how men don't understand women. And it was a really exciting time in my life.
This again is not original, but it's something I've felt that do so many of, including Moonlighting, so many of the roles you play. Heart's War, where these are they're ostensibly tough guys, and there's a blue-collar ethos that runs through a lot of these characters. And they're, in some cases, they're sort of exaggeratingly masculine, which is to say they're very, very active as opposed to verbal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet what I sense in all of them, including Moonlighting, is that at the core there seems to be a sadness. There seems to be something that desires to be touched and no one ever approaches to touch. There's a kind of unknowability there at the core. And that the man is like a mystery to himself, but it produces a kind of sadness. And mention that is because if you go back in your interviews to the very beginning, one of the things that runs, well, the two things that run, well, three actually. I mean, one of the things is how terrible fame is. Mm-hmm. Second is how you distrust the press, and the third is constant referral to doubt, to the fragility of life, the shortness of life, the brevity of it. In a sense, when I read all that, I thought to myself, well, part of why this guy, from his early days in New York, where he had a party boy reputation, and his reputation hot, and so comes from this terrible thing to be alive because it's going to end. So I was wondering, would you consciously bring that? If I'm right, and if I am, would you consciously bring that?
At a very early age, when I was in college, I almost lost my brother David to a car accident. He was struck by a car. And I almost lost my sister to Hodgkin's disease, both within like 2 months of each other. I also, when I was about to move to New York, and I went home to spend 6 months back in my hometown because they were both in the hospital.
Okay, what, 80, about
Well,
77?
77 in there. Went back to my little hometown and stayed there for 6 months while these guys, recuperated. I had a friend from college who lived in New York and was killed in a freak accident on New York. A truck sideswiped a cab jumps the curb, takes him out in a second, dead. And so I had a really strong awareness of how fragile life is, how quickly it can be taken away, how really we have no choices about who our parents are, how long we're going to live, what the circumstances of our life or death are going to be. The only thing we have is try to be alive in the moment, try to be alive and you want to call it live it up, yeah, but live, just don't wait, don't postpone things thinking that one of the biggest conceits of modern human beings is that we think we're going to live forever, that we have all the time in the world. And I know that we don't. I know that life can be snuffed out in a second. And I've said this in other interviews, but I think most people are surprised by when their death comes. You know, some people know when they get cancer and they know they're going to die. And for the most part, death is a sudden thing, and most people are surprised that, God, now I'm dying. This is it. This is the moment I'm going to die.
I've lost a lot of people in the last couple of years, and my little brother killed himself 2 years ago.
I'm sorry.
I know, I'm not saying it's single, but I agree with you. It's the sense of surprise. My mother had cancer, but she was in remission, and that was like 2 weeks ago. She suddenly finds herself in the hospital. She can't believe, she cannot
Can't get her mind around
it's
it.
happening to her. You know, and she keeps saying,
Sure.
well, when are we, you know, and then I'm
denial
down
of
to Florida, and the same thing I do next week, you know, and she's like 80 pounds, and, oh, anyway, I agree with you.
From the time my brother was diagnosed with
sorry.
pancreatic cancer, thank you. From the time my brother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, he lived 6 more weeks. That was it. It was just ate him up. It was just devastating, and there's no cure for it. There's no screen for it. He thought he had an ulcer. He said, I got bad ulcers. He kept going in and out of the hospital. The hospitals that first diagnosed him as having ulcers. He finally goes back in, and they do some more intensive testing, and they say you have pancreatic cancer. 6 weeks.
There's no screening?
There's no way to tell that you have it. And once you have it,
I know,
it's
well, organ cancers are
really difficult to survive.
and they're painful.
And it's really painful.
And why was he in Boston? Paul told me this over. I didn't know.
He was doing some work on himself. My brother had I would have to say a troubled life, a troubled adult life. Problems with alcohol and substance abuse, and sober, not sober, get sober, not sober, always wrestled with that. And he, the last 3 years of his life, asked for help, really finally said, I want help, I stop this, I want to get better. And got himself to Boston, to a rehab that is one of the best in the country, called McLean, and met a doctor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist that really helped him turn his life around. So he finally, at the end of his life, reaches the goal of being sober. He was sober the last 2.5 years of his life, and gets cancer. Dies 6 weeks later.
You don't get it. I don't mean to make it sound criminal. No, I was just trying to say what I was telling you.
All right, we're talking about the fragility of life, and just I still remind myself every day.
Do you mind? Because it's going to cut down all that noise.
As long as you don't mind smoke.
No, it doesn't. But I smoked for years. I just quit it 2 years ago. Doesn't. I like it. I like it. I like it. Blows my way. I really do.
I understand.
But fragility of life.
Fragility of life, man. It's just, you cannot, live it up. Live your life. And do not take it for granted. That is what I live by. And do not assume that you have forever. Even if you live to be an old age, even if you live to be 80, 85, 90, it's still like that. It goes by in a blink. And the older you get, the faster it goes. When you're a kid, summer seems like forever. Summers now go by in a blink. Months go by in a blink.
I mean, but I might as well tell you, my little brother Andrew killed himself. He was an addict, and he was down at parents' mother lived in Alexandria, and she was back home with her and done the 2 marriages. I don't even know the full thing, his wife, but the period where there was a great deal of drug use,
Sure.
my own and all the rest.
They didn't, I remember them teaching me in 10th grade of high school in health class, this is what LSD does, this is what marijuana does. Nobody knew, and I grew up in that generation, and I'm, product of that experimental time period in American culture. The drugs have always been around, but in the 70s, it was late 60s, 70s, it was rampant. And it's not like it is now. There's so much more information about it now, but it was an experimental time, to say the least.
I certainly didn't. I was into it. We're going to lose this. The question, though, Mr. Wills, is
Call me Bruce, please.
Bruce, thank you. Is how did you? Why, unlike say your brother, I don't mean to put an onus on your brother, but so many other people. Also, in terms of what you do, is that you never were overwhelmed by it. You never were lost to it. And so many were.
I saw it for what it was. I know that it's certainly, look, life is a scary, hard thing, and I don't judge anyone who succumbs to it, to wanting to take your mind out of present mode. I just had goals, that's all. I had things that were more important to me than not being present. So I drank a lot when I was in New York, but it was all fun related. It was all just, let's have a ball.
Where you had to have, it wasn't a dependent.
No. It was just, let's have some fun. I wasn't a morose drunk. It wasn't a whiny drunk. It was all about having fun.
You were good drunk.
Yeah.
I was a good drunk too, but I know a lot of bad drugs.
But it's, alcohol is the most insidious one. And let's face it, it doesn't get said a lot, but it is the last legal drug. They advertise it on sports. They advertise it, they sell, football games, drink beer. Funny little commercials about drinking beer. And, beer's got the same drug in it that vodka does or any other thing. It's that, and they make such a big deal about the marijuana and all this shit, and the fear of marijuana, and it's a crime and everything, and yet they pump those commercials out about alcohol, and it's the last legal drug. Legally sanctioned, sell it, make billions of dollars off it every year, and it doesn't get talked about that much, but it's a drug. And it's insidious.
I know, I tell you, but I don't drink anymore. I'd give anything to with her. I had more fun boozing the other night.
Sure.
Sure. You, other thing, you start playing, let's talk about music.
It's a different kind of performance, and very much akin to stage work, just stage plays, but it's very immediate. The audience likes the band, or likes what you're doing, they respond. They don't, you know that as well. Just like the stage, if you're kicking ass and the audience likes what you're doing, if it's comedy, they're laughing, and you know what that is. And that remains one of the fascinating things to me about acting or performing. Film acting is very much different than that. They're disconnected from the immediacy of music or stage work. By the time the film comes out, I shot Heart's War in the spring it'll be a year by the time the film comes out. So by the time the film comes out, I've moved on, I've done other films, and I'm disconnected from any immediacy of by the time an audience gets to see it, I'm not in the mindset of Heart's War. You know what I mean? Doing True West this summer, got me right back to that immediacy of and that thrill of live performance and being dared by the audience to the unspoken request is entertain me. I dare you to make me laugh. I dare you to entertain me. And it's just thrilling. It's just a thrill to go on stage. It's so electric. And when you can do it and when you can entertain people, it's a really rewarding thing.
Why don't you go back to Broadway? Why don't you go back to New York?
Because I own this theater in
Well, I know you do. I mean,
it's a just as I would put it up against any New York theater in the off-Broadway theater in New York. Got great seats, great acoustics, got a great stage, and I get to do it in my towns, and I get to do what I could do in New York in this small town. And when we did Fool for Love, I had guys come up to me and say, "This is the first play I've ever seen." You know, in New York.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah.
You know. And to do two Sam Shepard plays that are entertaining and are very dramatic, it's just a cool thing.
I saw a couple weeks ago, Ian McKellen and Helen Mirren and Dance of Death, Strindberg's Dance of Death on Broadway. It was dazzling. I mean, you really want to see it. Just a great play. It says to these. Basically, it's three characters, and it's basically these two actors in this incredible conflict between this couple. And it holds you transfixed for 2.5 hours. Point being that it's not, I came with it, that it's not a director's medium, really. It's an actor's medium. Film is not an actor's medium. Once you're on that stage, you are by yourself and you are in control.
You are naked, you are naked, and it is yours to win or lose. And you're right. I mean, once curtain goes up, it's up to the actors. And every time I go to New York, I see whether it's an off-Broadway play or a Broadway play, I always go, I gotta come back to New York to do a play. But I just haven't made that choice on it because, first of all, I get to do it in Haley. But I am reminded of my connection to the theater and how much more fun and challenging it is than doing film work, where you get to stop and start and make a mistake, you go back, and it's all nuance and camera's right up here. It's just a very different form of acting.
Why didn't you go? When you did,
I understand it now. I understand the function of it. What I couldn't deal with for a really long time or understand was the concept of my private life as entertainment for the masses, and I just railed against that. More against the tabloids. I hate the tabloids. I understand what they do and why they do and what what the function of that is. But I don't hate the press. I don't really hate anything anymore. I just pay far less attention to it now.
You mean you don't hate anything? You mean you don't hate anything? You don't have any passion?
I don't. No. I don't. I just don't. I mean, there are a couple things that I despise: ignorance, hatred, racism. Those kind of things. The press. I mean, everybody says this. I know you hate the media, you hate the press. I understand it for what it is. I'm an expert on it. I'm an expert on the media and how it functions and how it is all part of the same big machine of entertainment, of the entertainment industry, of show business. And frankly, everything is entertainment.
Look, I'll tell you something.
The beginning of the end of civilization. There are a couple newspapers
It's
left.
shameful.
I saw it happen.
Shut up,
I saw it happen when I saw it change during the time I was doing Moonlight. The tenor of the news, or of the media. And I did a lot of investigation into it. I looked at it a lot, and at a certain point they just ran, and it became such a competitive world. The news media itself, the reportage or the evening news changed, because now there are so many news channels, they all have to compete with each other. And if you have to compete, then you have to be more titillating, you have to be more, show more horror, you have to compete for the commercial dollar, or the commercials in between the news. And so the news is entertainment. I have accepted, I'm sorry, what was I saying?
I'm going to ask you, in a period of 4 years, I just checked you went from being a bartender, struggling actor, after 10 years of struggling. 4 years later, you had the hottest show on television. You had an album that went platinum. You had a #1 single.
I think I only got to number 5, but thank you.
You had Die Hard,
Yeah.
right? Biggest movie, and you'd married your wife. All in 4 years. You would literally, it was like going this way and bloop, the world changed.
Yeah.
Right? People that, where things like this happen to them suddenly, a normal response, as you know, sir, is that people, because Tennessee certainly had it. Tennessee, I would just say fame came too late. And you said you wake up every morning and you know it's not deserved, and you're afraid you're going to wake up and suddenly you realize the world will have to realize it was all a trick and it was a fluke, and you're going to be right back, as he would say, I'm going to be right back bumming cigarettes in New Orleans. I was wondering if you had that feeling and how you handled this success. I mean, it's a very difficult thing, very
in
destructive.
those 4 years, I don't think I handled it very well. I mean, there is no way, there's no manual, there's no textbook for how to deal with being famous. I asked guys that were already famous and they couldn't tell me. Nobody knew what to tell me about. So it was a huge learning curve. I now know what it is, and I now see it for what it is, and see that time for what it was. It's all illusion, man. Being famous is just illusion. It is a holographic composite of, here's the math on it for me. How many, I'll probably lowball it, but out of 365 days a year, there are probably 25 days out of the year where I meet somebody new. This would be one of them. My point is I don't meet that many new people. I stay within the orbit of my circle of friends and family. Everyone else in the world who knows who I am and has an idea of who I am is based on a composition of newspaper articles, tabloid articles, things that I say in electronic press, the movies I've seen, the television I've done, TV commercials I've done, all that shit, will think they know who I am. That composite image is so far from who I really am as a man and as a human being, and I've given up trying to explain it. I've given up trying to correct the world's attitude of what I am, or who I am. And I know that people don't want to really know that I just feel like a regular guy. They'd rather have me be, they don't want their illusion fucked with. But it is a world of illusion, it truly is. I mean, I get in front of a camera and repeat lines back to another actor standing off camera or in a scene. That's the basic thing that I do, and I try to be entertaining. It's the part that I love the most, the creation of a character, the creation of a story, of a film, taking 110 typewritten pages and trying to breathe life into these characters. Everything else that comes along with being famous, you can set on fire as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's all nonsense. There is absolutely no reason that I should be looked at as any more important than any of the guys who still, and my friends who still work down in EI DuPont. it's just a creation of the media in
I
order to market a film to make money off of it. It's all business.
It just makes it just too positive. Because I think you're being a bit disingenuous here. One is that
I'm certainly willing to look at the concept that this just could be my own way of dealing with how vulnerable it makes you to have your private life viewed as a piece of entertainment. The loss of privacy,
What's the
the
reason?
absolute loss of privacy. But I guess my point about that it's an illusion is that people want to believe that Hollywood is a glamorous town. Being an actor is a glamorous job. That it can be. That show business itself is this wonderful, shiny, bright thing, and I know different. You obviously do too. It's a town of snakes. This is a beautiful town. It's like a garden. It's snakes, full of snakes.
It's very hard to find a moral person on this planet.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And as long as you know that you are in a beautiful garden full of snakes, you'll be all right. It's when you forget that it's a garden of snakes that you're asking for trouble.
When you do. By the way, probably the reason I think you're, in terms of the public, that there was such interest, is that you were one of the few stars come along. In fact, probably the only star of your generation that appealed to men. Men were interested in it. Became I didn't make too much of it. Became a role model for younger men in terms of how a man should act. There was a hunger in that. I mean, I could write a good 200,000 words on your effect on our culture and in an extenuated sense, American politics and how the whole concept of masculinity changed in large part because of your films. But I don't want to go into that. It was absolutely true.
That's quite a burden. But I understand what you're saying there, and
They said you weren't aware of it, is what I'm trying to say.
you know
You were
what? I have
feeding
a
a
little
hunger
bit
that was there and no one was feeding before, and you did it with your persona.
I have a little bit of an awareness now. For whatever reason, my films do appeal to men. I think it's for this reason. My films appeal to black men. And we can talk about that in a second because it kind of relates to Heart's War. But a good friend of mine, a famous black guy, said to me, he said, you know why everybody likes you is because you just don't give a fuck. And you let people know that by how you behave and what you say and what you do, and that attitude bleeds out of your work. And I went, oh, okay, I get it, because that's pretty close to being true. And I just, do what I do, and I'm not going to apologize for it, and how I behave and how I live and entertain. All I got to do is satisfy the studio, do my job, and try to be entertaining. I get all the things that I think are cool, and that I think where cool comes from, and that whole concept is living and breathing in the black culture. Every new hip thing, every new cool thing, every new cool piece of music comes out of the black culture. It's never talked about. It's never talked about. Racism is still, as you know, rampant. Still is alive and well. But man, they are advertising. I don't watch this. They are advertising Saturday morning kids cereal commercials with hip hop little rapping white kids. The black culture and the black men and women are responsible for every new hip thing that comes along, every new phrase, every new thing, every new fashion. A lot of the things that are all coming out of that culture. far more than we come out of the white culture.
Well, that's true as a, I mean, I'm telling you, you know, I mean, but as a general rule, anywhere in the world, cultural changes, cultural influences come from outsiders, not from the dominant culture. I mean, in our culture, you look at important musicians, writers, painters, directors, so on, creative people, fashion people. They're either gay or they're Jewish or they're black. They're the people the dominant culture despise.
That are outside,
They're outside
the mainstream.
commanding
Sure.
system.
Oh, I completely agree with that. Completely agree with
Tell me that 4-year period. And you didn't answer the question, which was a sense of, did you have any sense of not being worthy of this? Any sense of panic?
No, I knew I was doing good work on Moonlight. I knew that, for the most part, it deserved the clamor that it was generating. There have been other times, there have been certainly other films that I've done where I was disappointed in, but never. I mean, I never thought. The part that I don't feel is deserved is the being made special. That what I say or what I do is somehow more important simply because I work in what is perceived to be a glamorous business. More than politicians. You know, politicians talk and some people pay attention, but for the most part, people don't give a shit about what goes on in the government. They just want to be left alone. And however, what actors do, how actors behave, what their lives are about is so much focus, given so much attention. And I don't feel that because I'm in a glamorous job or because I had some success or anything that what I have to say or my opinions or anything should be any more important than anything else.
Well, I mean, you may feel that there's something in the truth.
Well, and I'll allow that. I mean, that's just my own attitude.
In terms of the world of ideas, the importance of ideas is directly proportional to the amount of attention paid to them. And no one paid any attention to Adolf Hitler's ideas when they were down for it. It's because attention was paid, and there were lots of very theatrical ways he got to you get attention.
Oh yeah.
You have attention, so whatever ideas you have, by virtue of that, you lock on the public's attention, makes what you think important because people attend. That's the reason. I mean, it's not that there's no credentialing here.
No, that makes sense.
I think it's just something that's off. You know, I would like to get on to, about you mentioned feelings about women, feelings about masculinity, your thoughts on that. I mean, I really am interested in that. Also, I want to talk about the war, if I could, a bit about America. But you were saying about you deserve. Well, I agree with you. In Moonlighting, that the attention it got was deserved because it was terrific work. It's now nearly 2 decades later, and you're a famous man. You're one of the most famous people in the world. You're also you're highly accomplished. You're at the point where, and you've been here for a long, long time now, where you are so good at what you do, so valuable at what you do, that you can choose what you do. So one thing that if we had the time, I'd like to talk to you about is the choices you made, because those choices speak to certain values you have that you express through those choices. And you're I assume, rich. But the question is, now that you've accumulated all this, including the influence, what's the purpose of it? What's the point of it? I mean, you have money in order to spend it on something. What is it you want?
Well, yeah, I was just talking. None of this was ever about money. The money was albeit very generous sidebar, but I never did it for money. It was not about money. I continue to because I still am struggling to express myself as an artist. I really like acting. I really like setting aside Bruce Willis and trying to become a character. I have fun doing it. And overall, to sum up, is what I do. I don't know how to do anything else. I've spent so much time on this that, I mean, I can tend bar to go do that, but I'm still having a ball acting. I still enjoy
Well,
it.
in terms of, I misstated myself. What I meant, sir, was in terms of, you acquired all this.
Mm-hmm.
You acquired this position. You were the one that brought up people, and why is anyone interested in me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, whether you want them to be or not, they are.
They are.
And what you
I know.
say they are. So you've got this power. That's what power is. To what purpose? I mean, how do you use that power to accomplish what? Now, what I'm asking you is there intent to this? Is there any moral imperative on you as a person? When you did the Three Friends,
Mm-hmm.
you donated the money to charity.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you wanted it or not, that got out. And particularly on the AIDS, when you gave money to the AIDS charity, that gave a validation to a pariah disease because you paid attention, gave money to it, it meant it's okay to, right? Because that suffering is as valuable as anybody else's suffering,
That's right.
But my point is, do you have any sense of a moral, I don't know what your religion is, but the Bible says, much is given, much will be required.
I believe that. I don't look at it as a moral responsibility or
Duty,
as a moral duty. It is a choice that I make, and in its simplest form, I haven't learned much in 46 years. And I want to go back to this other acting thing because one of the other reasons I still continue to act is I'm still learning how to act. And I still think that my best work is ahead of me. I'm still trying to work it out. And it is a work in progress.
That's great.
And that's how I view it. But as all I've learned in 46 years is that I want to try to live my life as a good man and a good father. That's it. If that and to try to help people when I can. And most of my charities are anonymous, and I don't make a big deal out of it. I mean, the thing with Friends got picked up because
I'm glad it got picked up.
Yeah, I mean it's from time to time thing. You do get one up on the board that can have an effect on things. I inwardly and in my life rail against injustice. And you mentioned AIDS and the whole pariah aspect of it. That's an unjust thing. Why is that disease any different than pancreatic cancer? Why is it different than a heart attack? Why is it different than any other thing? Because there is this fear about the gay community that it is, and that is prejudice. And I have zero tolerance for prejudice. Whether it's against blacks, whether it's against Jews, whether it's against the Native American Indians, whether it's against the gay community, I refuse to accept that. And I'm a revisionist historian. And have learned and educated myself a great deal about about what happened to the Native American
No, I
Indians.
see pictures, the photographs all over Native America.
Well, it's on a Cheyenne thing that he's very strong with. But I just talked about the Native American Indians first shoot. I think with Gwendolyn.
Oh, Gwendolyn.
Well, Gwendolyn has that book, that she did on the Native American Indians, and we got talking about it, and I said, we got into this whole thing, this very deep philosophical thing about it, and I said, probably a week can't go by without somewhere in the world, somewhere in print, someone is writing about the 6 million Jews that were killed tragically during World War II. It is a tragedy. It's horrific. Also in that war, 21 million Russians were killed, not They certainly weren't burned in ovens. That is a horrific fucking concept. It is, but it is, you never hear anybody talk about the fact. You want to wait for this?
No,
It was, Gwendolyn.
I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. It's just, it is, that kind of prejudice and prejudgment is alive and well in our culture. You never hear anybody talk about the fact that the power behind this country after the Civil War, when all these soldiers came home and they had nothing to do, came up with a concept of wiping out the Native American Indians.
Yeah, exactly.
Genocide.
Right after the war.
Genocide.
That's right.
19 million Indians were killed by government sanction. Whenever they wanted to kill Indians, they gave them blankets with smallpox in them to mothers and babies. Our government, the military, did that. How can that not be any more horrific than 6 million Jews being incinerated in ovens? Not saying that's not horrific, but Jesus Christ, this
That's our
fucking
Holocaust.
government.
It's like our Holocaust.
That's right. And it's far worse, far worse. There are other things like that. I mean, look, Kennedy was killed as a coup d'etat, and the people, whoever did that, is still in power. Those people got away with it. No one was ever brought to answer for that. No one is ever brought to answer for how the Native American Indians are still being treated. They put a $5 bounty on Indian scalps. These guys will go down into Mexico and kill little Mexican kids and take their scalp for the money. You should read a Cormac McCarthy book called Blood Meridian that talks about this, and in really historically accurate detail. And because you know what? It's a dirty secret, and no one ever wants to talk about it. Marlon Brando had that whole thing with, Wounded Knee and everything, and he was castigated for it. It's like, oh, how could you possibly, it's unjust.
Nobody talks about it.
Absolutely unnatural work. That was visited on them more important than the horror that was visited on the Gigs or the Native American Indians. It's just unjust.
Well, we know why. Nobody says why. We know why.
No one talks about it, and it's unacceptable to me. Why do they? Thank you. Why is racism still alive and well? Why?
I think it's profitable. It divides the working class.
That's right.
I'm quite honest with you.
It is profitable. You're right. You're right.
If you keep run for office. No, I know you.
Really?
Yeah. So I was wondering if you why don't you talk about that?
I think the rules are going to have to change for me to get in there. There's going to have to be some kind of curve on that one, because I've always said it half in jest, but it's actually true. My checkered past will always keep me out of politics. I've been very verbal about it. I have smoked weed. I took acid. I took drugs. I don't. They want to. If I ever would run, I would run on that platform. Yeah, I did all these bad things. I no longer do them, and during the 4 years that I would be president or whatever office it would be, I'd be good, and I would serve my country, and I want to serve my country. I was crushed to learn 4 or 5 years ago when I asked, I said, what if I served my country by joining the military? And I said, you're too old. You're too old. They're not going to accept you. You're fucking 40 years old. You're not going to do that. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I completely didn't think about that. I'm trying to get involved with the USO system, and especially now in this country, and I would see that as serving my project that I'm working on with Nancy Daly Riordan, with the blessing of the White House. I've been dealing with Mr. Karl Rove, to try and overhaul the foster care program.
Oh my God.
Because I see it as something that is fixable. May take
In every state?
Here's the problem.
I have
All the files are still handwritten, not computerized at all. The states don't talk to each other about it. It is a federally funded and a federally run program, and little kids are being killed. Little kids are being abused, because no one's
There's
paying
no check
attention.
on, oh, what a
Because
great
there's
story.
nobody's paying attention to it. So Nancy Daly Reardon has made that a project for her here in California, and when I began to look into it, she was the one that I was steered towards, and we're slowly working on it. It's been you slowed down a little bit by the events of September
Listen,
11th.
if you do that officially, you get,
Well, I'm about to. I mean, this is a good forum for it.
I mean, my God, what a great story. It's because you, in terms of foster, there's no way of finding criminal records of people who are given children to foster parents. Is that
Child
correct?
abuse.
And so child abusers move from one state to another.
Pedophiles. And a guy that is a child abuser, all he has to do is move across the state line and start over, and these,
No idea.
it's horrible. It's just fucking horrible. And all it takes is some attention. All it takes is it takes money, and the White House is completely behind it.
And this isn't just to be serious a second. I know you don't take this seriously, but to be serious a second. Ronald Reagan ran for governor first time, and I'm speaking as a Democrat. Everyone said, I mean, he's got the same thing that George Bush, the print doesn't have, so the same as everybody always underestimated him. But he could never win the governorship because he's been forced. He won the landslide. He said he could never win the presidency because he's divorced. He won the landslide. Bill Clinton, right, there the issue with drugs. He could never win because of drugs, even though he could never win because of the draft, right? Well, he won. Then all the sexual shenanigans were out there when he ran the second time. He could never win, right? He won the landslide.
Yeah.
Polls were if he'd tried for third, he could have run for third. This is after Monaco. He would have won. My point, sir, is that what hurts someone politically is not what has done in the past. It's the refusal to admit what has done
That's right.
in the past and to say, I'm sorry.
That's a good point.
So I think that's irrelevant to whether you could. But you don't have any interest in it.
No.
I mean, I'd love to see it be a great story. I think you can win.
Well, thank you.
What do you think of Bush, the president? I mean, I know you're a friend of his father.
Great friends with his dad. He is being tested. He is on the stove right now, and how and the outcome of this war is going to determine his historical footnote. People want to throw rocks. It's inevitable. There's no way. They make fun of the fact that he misspeaks. Big fucking deal.
He's dyslexic. That's why.
He had the good sense and had got the good advice to surround himself with brilliant men and women, and that alone, if for no other reason, there is a government in place now that is run by people that know what the hell's going on and know what.
What's a cold chew? I put a quote about war, terrorism. You can speak. It's amazingly impressive. This is 7 years ago, 96. World War II had that glow, the last righteous war. The next war will be about terrorism. Whether it's foreign or American, whether it's foreign or American terrorists, it will be fueled by a religious political engine.
Oh my God.
and stopping evil will still be a very righteous cause. That's 1996, you said that. The next war will be about terror. And I read that, and I thought,
Jesus,
I read this,
forgot about that.
I read this when I came back from the movie,
Wow.
and I was reading more interviews that I thought, I thought, this guy.
That's scary. That's scary. Jesus.
What do you think, in a just general sense, because I want to put in something about, and you'll see where the point is going, about September 11th and post-September 11th, and your feeling about America and about the war and what's happening to our country. And you see where the question's leading.
As horrible as those events were, the 5,000 or so people that were killed or injured in New York, I'm not sure the exact number of how many people were killed. Let's just say
Let's go 4,000, it's about 15,000 injured.
As horrible as those events were in that single hour, and you should check this, but I think this is accurate. Roughly 20 million people die every day in the world. The deaths of these people galvanized this country, and I think the world, to finally address a problem that has existed easily since World War II. It was always easier not to deal with terrorism. And I think this is a great opportunity for the world, for the people that, in much the same way of any crime. I don't rob people. I don't put guns up to somebody's head and say, "Give me your dough." Or say to a girl, "You have to fuck me or I'm going to kill you." I don't commit crimes. I don't live my life that way. So I have a righteous indignation about people that do. I have my own spiritual beliefs. I'm not a religious man, but I have my own spiritual beliefs. And I do not think it is acceptable on any level to allow anyone's religious beliefs to take another person's life. And whether that's the Catholic Church, whether that is the Muslim faith, it's unacceptable. I think this is a great opportunity for this country and the world to finally unite and say, you know what, this is a war, and we're going to fight it until it is completely obliterated. And are they going to be successful? I don't know. Line them up, get them all and line them up and shoot and do away with it.
But what's interesting, the reason I brought that up is that why I feel very fortunate being here at this particular time, not just because of the film, because the film's it's very relevant to the culture at the moment, good private life. What makes you interesting about being a public figure is, it's one thing people constantly say about you, and it goes way back, commentary made a long time, about your acting. It's one of the things, adjectives used about you is the truthfulness of it, the honesty of it, the authenticity of it. Because you would have it to be carried away. He played it truly. And I don't mean to compare you as actors, but John Wayne, who in a sense, I mean, you've become to occupy that kind of iconic position in American culture. And one of the reasons it worked for him, and it worked for Jimmy Stewart, forgive me, and it worked for Spencer Tracy, and it works for you, is there is no difference, there's absolutely no difference between the public image, in terms of the values that people sense about you, and your private beliefs. And
I certainly don't feel compelled to, trick it up or look good. I mean, I say things that I think for, to a lot of people are blatant. People don't want to hear about Native Americanism. People don't want to hear about the injustice, racism. But that's a good comment. I mean, it is about being honest, and I think it's somehow wired into my desire to live my life as a good man, and that includes standing up against injustice.
What does that mean, a good man, outside of standing up against injustice?
Every man, and I can't speak for women because I don't understand women that well. Every man knows that there is a line in life, and on one side of it is good, and one side of it is bad behavior. One side is good behavior, and one side is bad behavior. Unless you're a sociopath and have something completely fucked up in your mind. But if you're reasonably sensible, you know where that line is. Occasionally we all drift over into that dark side of it. To me, I am trying to stay on the good side of that line.
Right.
There have been huge chunks of my time when I was on the dark side of it. It means trying to help people. It means trying to.
What do you do with something like kindness and truthfulness?
Yeah. I mean, those are all great goals and all great values. There's just too much hatred. There's just too much. And hatred is all fear-driven anyway. You know, it's all.
Oh, that's why you said I don't hate anyone.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't fear anything anymore.
You don't fear death, or
I definitely don't fear death.
going broke.
Turn it off for a second. I do fear.
You saw, how many pretentious here, but you saw the God in her life.
It's not pretentious.
That all this was given to her, the good and the bad, by God, and that you finally had to accept it in good grace. So when you talk about being a good man, you're speaking to a system of moral belief that defines what that means. My question, I asked you earlier, but I didn't make it clear, is where did those ethics come from? I asked you if it come from your father in the military, but from the time you were a little boy, where you the sense of this is what I ought to do, this is what I should not do, this is where duty lies.
I'd have to say it's self-taught. It's something that I acquired as not so much a raison d'etre, but just a cumulative, in little chunks at a time, of what I do want. And I'll tell you exactly where it came from. I didn't have a system of beliefs that I could quantify before I had my children. I'm sure the information that has become my belief system was somewhere wandering around in my head. It wasn't until I had kids until I realized that how important it is I realized that it was my job and my wife's job to teach our children the difference between right and wrong. And when I began to, when they were growing up and getting older, and I actually began talking about those things, I realized that my beliefs about what was right and wrong had changed from the time I was, say, 21 years old to the time I was 32 when we started having kids. And I had to take a fresh look and re-examine everything that I thought was right and wrong and say, this is where I am with it now. Because you can't teach someone something until you taught yourself the same information. Because it wouldn't be honest. Otherwise, you'd just be parroting something else. And that's what it came from.
Were you raised in any faith? Were you raised Catholic?
Yeah, Lutheran, but it was really, my dad didn't care if I went or not. It was important to my mother, and I went until I got confirmed. But I questioned his religion even then. I remember I was 9, 10 years old, I was going, well, what, explain it to me. How does God work? How does all that work? I mean, I now know that it's all based on what we're saying, a concept of faith. What you believe. If we believe that Faith, we believe there is a God. We believe that there is something larger driving the events of the world.
Well, not we. I mean, do you believe that?
I believe that. More people have been killed in the name of organized religion.
Right. And they're being killed now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Great example right now. Plus, it's all about. It's become in this country anyway. I mean, look how much it's all about money. Look how much the Catholic. I'll probably get killed for this, for saying this, but I mean the Catholic Church. You know, I mean I went to the Vatican, and they took me on that little, the private tour, and I saw these solid gold fucking coffee tables, like a chair,
They shouldn't take Protestants on that tour.
That's right.
I keep telling them about that.
And I got it in this gestalt moment. I said, oh my God. People have been trying to buy their way into heaven. It's showbiz, that's right. People have been trying to buy their way into heaven for centuries. And it's been capitalized on for centuries.
Yeah, but you talk about your brother, and when you talk about the fragility of life, by the way, the piece, I think it's an extraordinary piece of writing. I don't know who put it together for you, that you did in Esquire.
I like that one too.
It's just beautifully done, but very eloquent. But when you talk about that, I think to myself, and other things statements you made going way, way back. I think this guy is afraid of death. This guy believes people die. He believes he's going to die. He's afraid of it. That's why I thought you didn't seem like you had any. Your heart was housed in any sort of faith. I mean, that's why I thought.
No,
that's where the sadness comes from.
Well, no, I'm a very religious spirituality, whatever you want to call it, leanings are, I would have to say, more Eastern than anything else. Certainly not Protestant, certainly not Catholic, certainly not. I mean, yeah.
You mean like Buddhism or?
No, not any one particular religion. Just in terms of my beliefs of what I believe happens in terms of life, death, and I was always up in the air about it until just recently. I had an amazing thing happen to me that I cannot explain, that I completely accept, and it has confirmed something that I thought might be, but never had any proof. So it was all just a choice to have the faith that this happens. But I was in the room with my family when my brother Robert died.
Up in Boston?
No, he came back to Los Angeles. Died here.
And you were with him when?
We were all in the room.
Lucky man.
We were lucky that we got the opportunity to say goodbye.
And he was lucky.
He was, I think he was too. But that last night, he was nonverbal. He was sliding away, and we were talking to him with the hopes that he could hear us and that he could understand what we were saying. I never knew. Never had an answer. To me, is on her own spiritual path and her own is seeking her own quest about trying to find stuff out. She turned me on to this woman named Peggy Romito. It's a woman from I hope I get it right. I think she's from Iowa. If you met her, she's a mom, 2 kids, married. At some point in her life, she realized that she was getting information from the other side. Now, that said,
are you being straight with me?
I am being straight with you. This was a unbelievable thing. I went to a kind of a seminar she did, a workshop she did, and it was interesting in some ways. But the following day, I had a chance to sit down and talk to her, and she has the ability to receive information from the other side, from whatever you think that is.
Okay.
I had a question for her, and I said, did my brother Robert know? Like she begins, she goes through whatever process it takes her out of being Peggy Romito and to receiving this information. And I wanted to know if my brother Robert knew we were in the room the night that he died. And she begins speaking in the vernacular of my brother. She starts cussing just like my brother did. She's saying motherfucker. She's saying, and the first thing she said was, she answered me in his voice. She said, how could I not hear you? You guys were so fucking loud. And for the next 5 minutes, she is talking as my brother. I'm tears down my face, and I am a believer now. I know that people, that death, that we do not, that the switch is not turned off. I was freaked out by it. He goes on to...
She doesn't
know any... She said things to me...
Could your wife have told him?
There was no way. There was no way. She said things to me that were conversations that I had with my brother Robert in Boston that only he and I had. She was saying things, he was saying things through her and addressing things that only he and I had the information. There was no fucking way she could have known. No way she could have gotten this information. And she was talking like he talks, in his vernacular, in his cadence, in his slang. Then, at the end of this 5 minutes, she says, oh, and by the way, your grandmother is standing next to Robert right now, my dad's mother, who I never met, and I just fucking lost him. I mean, and she says she's very proud of you, and it was fucking moving. And then she went on to address some things about me, but that 5 or 6 minutes was just fucking life-altering. It was just amazing to me.
That convinced you of
that there is life, that
the
the spirit, that the switch is not turned off, and it's not just this life. I don't know what it is, and I didn't ask, and I don't think she even knows what the math is on it, of how it happens, or how the mechanics of it work, or anything like that. But I'm a believer.
We thought that one of the interesting about
Our choice to believe that this planet, it could be one of two possible things. That culture has risen and destroyed itself countless times on this planet. That's one idea. The other is that we were colonized, and that information came from wherever we were colonized from. I don't know. It's a good question. Where does it come from? And that's right. I mean that.
And there's a reason for every. In nature, things occur because they have a reason to be, or they once had a reason to be. And the only idea that for which there was no practical explanation of its usefulness is constant throughout human history and in all cultures. You have to understand who put it there and why is it there. Because people in the South Seas who had no connection 4,000 years ago with people in Siberia, they both share that incest taboo and the idea of a human immortality. And so the question is, why is it there? Where does it come from? Anyway, that's something. Can we talk a little bit about your feelings about men and your feelings about women? Why don't they get along together? I mean, I have a lot of feelings about it too.
He's wired differently, different chemicals. I think that it's. I know. You know, I get to start. I can give you about 5, 6, 10 more minutes.
Okay.
And then I gotta do some stuff. I got a guy
Okay.
waiting for me. We are all responding and driven by our genetic maps, our DNA. DNA that's in me and you and everybody else on Earth does not know that it's the late 21st century. Still riding on the same
programming that's been there for 100,000 years, 50,000 years. And that is all about one thing. Our DNA drive and everything that men and women do in modern culture and through all cultures throughout history has been about one thing, and that is keeping the species alive, getting our genes into the next generation. Everything we do, in our time, this means the accumulation of wealth and power, the way women dress to attract a mate is no different than the mating rituals of birds, the plumage, different things. It's all. I mean, there are parallels. This is not a new concept, and it's not really my idea. I got this from out of a book called The Moral Animal. But when I read it, I went, "This is right. This is true. This is how it works." Well, for me, anyway.
Right. Well, I think you're right. I think it's true.
And women say men are pigs. Men think with their cock. Yeah, because we are wired to fuck as often as possible to keep the species alive. Happens to be the most fun thing to do on Earth anyway, but that's what it is. And it's just the social mores of the year 2000, the last 30 or 40 years that women weren't even allowed to say anything, let's face it, in Hollywood, in the world, men run the world. It's the way it is. Women are certainly making breakthroughs and making inroads into that. But by and large, it's a misogynist world. Does misogynist mean male hatred, or is it just male driven? I'm not quite sure. Anyway.
No, misogynist. A misogynist is somebody is male contempt for women.
A lot of that exists. And there are a lot of reasons for it. That's not my point. And vice versa, sure. It all comes out of our childhood and how we were treated and whether we were loved or not loved.
No, which is, I find this the point of the question. I know your marriage is over.
Mm-hmm.
And you've quoted and so you talked about that in interviews. I'm not interested in the marriage, but I'm listening what your ideas are on these things. And you talked about you said you had like a jackpot. This is after you became famous. You had like jackpot tattooed on your forehead. And you talked about the fact you wants to be liked or to be attractive for you, who you were as a man, as opposed to what you did for a living. Right? And it seems to me in that statement and other statements you've made is that you don't really believe in the possibility of love with a woman.
I do. I think I said those things between the time that my wife and I separated and right now. And a couple of things happened in some subsequent relationships after I was divorced that I was really hurt by. And I put my heart back in the box and put it back up on the shelf. And I espoused my DNA theory, that we are all only driven by our genetic maps. I have recently come back around to allowing for the possibility that romance does exist, that love can exist.
You know what romantic from?
Yeah. Now, see, the problem is that since World War II, the last 100 years, the culture there is a mythology of love. It differs from the reality of love. And it's all fueled by novels, by songs on the radio, by now TV and movies that reinforce these myths. That there's only one perfect person for you. That when you meet the right person, it's going to be happy ever after. That if you meet the right person, you will not need anything from that. from that person, that or you won't that your all your needs will be met, that you will have happiness, that you will no longer have to work at the relationship itself. All this mythology, but it's just not true. It fucks up a lot of people. You know, and causes a lot of pain. Demi and I have, I think, a really remarkable relationship right now. We continue to co-parent our kids. We get along as well now as we ever did in our marriage, probably better. I'm about to buy a house. I bought the house. I moved into a house in Sun Valley. It's directly across the street from where Demi and the children live.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. We do things together. We go to events together. My point is that there's no animosity. There's no hatred. There's no. There's not that immediacy of the resentment of that you see in so many divorces.
You are so fucking lucky.
I am lucky. I am lucky, and it is a wonder to behold. And I'm so glad and fortunate to have someone like Demi still in my life. She's a wonderful mother. We're still friends. We talk every day, a couple times a day, 2-3 times a day about the kids and what's going to happen, what's going on in school, and their health and emotional well-being and all that.
We're what's going to be boring you, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I was a couple months ago, not now, about 8 weeks ago, I was down in Nashville with Garth Willis.
In the example you cited, for whatever reason, the courts don't give a shit about bad behavior. They don't give a shit about infidelity. It has no bearing on the outcome of divorces. Courts don't care. There's no fault. You know, I mean, you don't get along, and it's determined by how good a father you are, how good a parent you are. If you're an absentee father, they're going to look at that and make a call based on that. I would say that the gentleman you were talking about, this is what he does. This is his job. This is
what he does, sir. It's what he is. It's who he is.
That's right.
Himself.
And you cannot. And the courts are, I think, would fine for him. And if you talk to him, you can certainly pass this along. Don't sweat it. You know that if he's a good parent, he's gonna get to do what he wants. And women want to believe that they can dictate.
So she's doing.
Right.
Sure.
Resentment is a powerful motivator.
I said she's jealous of you. She's this little girl who's done nothing with her life.
Damn right.
Except being married to you.
And she's been given the opportunity to legislate his life.
Control.
And use the kids as hostages. And that is one thing that to me and I have never done. Never, and God knows, I mean, that is the rule. People use their kids as tools all the time in a divorce. To both our credits, we married them.
Let me ask just one Barbara Walters question. Then we're out, because I need an ending quote. When you look over your life, the good things that have happened to you, what is your feelings about it? I want, of course, something about gratitude and feeling blessed and lucky.
I've been blessed by God, by my God. I have no idea why it's happened to me, why I've been given the good fortune that I've been given. But I know that I've been blessed by God, and I am appropriately humbled about that. I believe the best is yet to come for me. I believe that as an actor, to tie it into acting in this film, my best work as an actor is still ahead of me. And I said that 10 years ago. I mean, I said I still, people say, ooh, superstar, movie star, big actor, blah, blah, blah. Fuck, I'm still learning how to act. I'm still trying to figure it out. Every film I learn a little bit more. And I think the best.
So you're an optimist.
I'm an optimist in this sense. hope for the best and expect the worst, and you'll never be surprised.
Okay.